Hello and welcome to Dr. Shiny Tarot. This is a daily pick a card reading for December the 14th, which is Monday. And the purpose of this reading is to give you just a little brief piece of advice or to help guide your overall focus for the day. Now, if you are looking for a longer, more detailed reading, we have those. So please check out my channel and check out the monthly readings. They're quite a bit more detailed now. If you are new to pick a card readings, the way this works is that you will choose one of these three piles and you'll scroll down to the description and click on the timestamp for the pile that you've selected, and it'll skip ahead in the video to your reading. So if you do feel compelled to choose more than one card, that's okay. That's totally fine. Please follow your intuition. There's likely to be good advice in each reading, and if one pile is more accurate than the others, that's fine, but you'll still have some good advice in all of these. So I have added 3 crystals to aid in your selection. Today we have Rainbow Moonstone. This is Carnelian, and this one is Lepidolite, or Lepidolite. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds of silence so that you can meditate on your choice. And once you have your choice in mind, go ahead and find the timestamp for your choice in the description. Okay? And we'll start the 30 seconds right now. Okay, so if you have not already done so, please go ahead and choose your pile and scroll down to the description to find the timestamp for your particular reading. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Rainbow Moonstone. If you chose this Rainbow Moonstone, which is in its rough state in this example, sorry, I tend to have some butterfingers, so that's okay. Occasionally one stone multiplies into many that way. So if you chose stone number 1, here's your reading for today. You have the 8 of Wands in the reverse, the 5 of Cups in the reverse, and then the Lovers. So let me adjust this just a little bit. So the 8 of Wands in the reverse there is meaning that you're being like a little bit resistant to some change. There is another possible interpretation of this where you are kind of like rushing into a situation with a little bit too much of a rash, or you're being a little careless with that, rushing into that situation. But I tend to kind of think more that this is like resisting change. That's kind of where my mind goes when I see this. And the 8 of Wands upright is all about like change, drastic change happening, spontaneous, very quick, almost chaotic energy, where you don't really know what's going on because things are changing so fast, right? So you're resistant to that. You're trying to get things kind of under control. You're trying to get things to be a little bit more predictable. And that's that reversed 8 of Wands energy. Now, the crossing or the challenge for you here is this 5 of Cups in the reverse. And this suggests that you may have made some mistakes. You may be already aware that you have rushed a little bit and made some mistakes. But you're not necessarily shying away from that. You're understanding those mistakes, and you're in a place where you're ready to move on. Or if not, your challenge is going to be to get there, where it is the situation is asking for you to essentially to not get hung up on the fact that some mistakes were made, or not to cry over spilled milk, but to instead look at what you can learn from that situation and how you can move on, and kind of improve your plan of attack from this point on. Now, your advice card here being the Lovers. Lovers is involved with choice and making a decision to kind of stick with something. So, in the advice card, I'm feeling like this is saying not to get too discouraged. Here's the thing: is a lot of times they'll have a failure or a minor setback, and that kind of discourages them from continuing in whatever endeavor they're in. And that's really unfortunate, because what you can do is you can carry those failures forward and hone your focus and become even more effective. And it's like failure can be a really, really big help to you. And if you just sort of give up when you fail, then that's really unfortunate, because it's a big waste, where sticking through, sticking with something, and making a choice that you're going to keep at it means that success is almost guaranteed, right? And it's a cliche for a reason, but you may have heard cliches when you were younger that the only real failure is when you stop trying, or something to that effect. And in a way, that's very, very true. It doesn't always feel like that. Sometimes it feels just like a meaningless cliche. But if you really stick your nose to the grindstone and keep trying, eventually things do have to give. And it may be frustrating, and you don't want to just necessarily keep trying the same thing over and over again. You may want to alter your methods, but that's what's involved with learning from your failures. So if you can take an honest look at yourself and say, okay, well, this failed because X, Y, and Z, then you can not do those things the next time. And, if you collect a list of things not to do, eventually you figure out what you should do. So that's kind of what's going on here, I feel like. But, resisting this change, interacting with these other two cards, could be that you have like a way that you've always felt was the best way, but you have to also take stock of like how has the environment around you changed, or how has what is called for changed. So sometimes you come up with some successful idea, or you do something and it works out right, and then you don't want to divert from that, but like the circumstances change and it no longer works, so you have to divert from whatever maybe was successful at one time, right? So the methods are required by the circumstances, and you have to be able to kind of read the lay of the land to be able to maintain a successful position. It sucks because we tend to want to figure something out that just lasts and we can just forget about it. But everything is in constant motion, and everybody's always trying to figure out ways of taking advantage of others and getting one up on others. And so there's always a need to keep moving forward, almost like a shark, right? And that's kind of just a part of life. So if you make a choice to do that, to have that sort of mindset, it doesn't feel quite so much like a drag. It doesn't grate on you so much. But anyway, so that's pretty much the reading for card number 1, and we're going to go ahead and move on. So we're going to move on to card number 2 for Carnelian. If you chose this lovely smooth Carnelian here, this will be the reading for you. Let's do it like this. Okay, so you have the 8 of coins in reverse. That's similar to the last reading. And the 10 of swords for your challenge, and the wheel in the reverse for your advice. Okay. 8 of coins in the reverse, I always instantly think of perfectionism, because the 8 of coins is very, very busy in energy, very determined to get something done, hard at work, industrious, right? So in the reverse, the way I think about this is it's like not giving up that energy. It's refusing to be done with that. And you could also think about, like, one other possible interpretation is that you refuse to put in the energy that you need to get something done. But, I tend to see this more in examples of perfectionism, where you really want to make something the best that it can possibly be, and so it's kind of never finished. You're so methodical and trying to get this thing to be the absolute best version that you never really consider it done. And another danger with perfectionism, if you're kind of leading other people, you can really burn them out very quickly by setting standards that are kind of unachievable or impossible to reach. So there's a saying. It's like you don't strive for perfection, you strive for excellence. So that's one way to kind of get out of that mindset of perfection, because you can't achieve perfection. Now, you can always move toward perfection, and that's fine, but eventually you have to be able to say, okay, this project is done. You can't just, wrap up all your time in this and never feel like it's finished. Well, so your challenge here is this Ten of Swords. So I like how in this deck it's not quite so grim, but usually the Ten of Swords, there's a guy there with like 10 swords sticking out of his back, like it's done, right? Like you have to walk away from this. You have to let go. And letting go, you start to notice some other things in the picture. There's like a sunrise on the horizon, which gives you hope for the future, that you can move on to something else. But so the idea here is it may be better for, instead of you just putting all your time into this one project, it may be better for you to kind of let go of it and to move on. But it's going to be a real struggle for you. That's not going to be something that's easy for you to do. You're going to want to sit there and keep a lot of effort and time into whatever you're doing and not move fluidly from one situation to the other. But there's a little stream going through here, and she's not very optimistic or happy about it. She just kind of wants to sit there, but there is an opportunity for motion, moving beyond, but it's going to be something that's hard for you to see or hard for you to focus on. So find a way to say, okay, well, this is good enough, and I'm going to move on to another project. The advice card for you here is the Wheel of Fortune, but in the reverse. And this can mean kind of like bad luck. But I'm really thinking, in the advice card, the position that the card is in matters, right? So in the reverse, this to me means that you can essentially either chalk things up to sort of bad luck, and to me that's not ideal, because it kind of teaches you to consider the circumstances to be external, so there's like nothing you can do about. Or you can kind of take responsibility for what's happened, and that can mean, first of all, like with these perfectionist tendencies, you could be really, really dramatically trying to avoid failure and all that kind of thing. But if you kind of let go and the thing still turns out to be a success, well, you can take accountability for that. It's not just luck. You're trying to say that only your idea of the correct amount of effort defines when some project is completed sufficiently, but it doesn't work that way, really. It's what kind of reaction do you get? So if you can learn to kind of rely on the reaction that you get to be a indicator of how much more or less effort you need to put into a project, that way of doing things is a lot easier, or I don't want to say easier because that makes it sound like it's a shortcut. It's more effective and more efficient to do it that way, because if you're constantly just like worried that you might fail, and you kind of figure that the ruling stick of your work is some almost luck-based thing to where you want to just put in the absolute best effort that you can and just hope it works out, then you're going to be wasting a whole lot of energy. Whereas if you try to submit something and it doesn't work out, then you can say, okay, well, I'm sorry, I'll try next time. And it actually tends to impress other people more if you make an improvement than if you are just like perfect the first time. I know that seems a little paradoxical, but I certainly have found that to be true in my life, that it's like if you come into a situation and try to be absolutely perfect the first time, a lot of times people get frustrated with you because they don't feel like you're moving quick enough or trying hard enough, even though you feel like you're trying really, really hard to be successful. What happens is you kind of grind to a halt. You stop moving fast, And then it doesn't look like you're learning. It looks like you want to be perfect from the beginning. Whereas if you try things and they don't work out, usually people are not going to fault you for that initially. They're going to expect you to have some early failures. But if you can then learn from that and improve, that's when you start to impress people, because it's hard for most people to really learn new things. So, take that for your advice, and just remember that you don't have to get it perfect the first time, as long as you're able to take responsibility for the failure, instead of like pushing it back on another person and saying like, well, no, you're judging me wrong. Well, don't do that. Instead, just say, okay, I understand what you're saying, and I will do better next time, and that's gonna work out pretty well for you. But anyway, so that's about it for card number 2. That one went a little longer than I wanted it to, but that's okay. All right, and now we have card number 3 with the Lepidolite, which is got a nice little shine to it. It's kind of flaky. It looks like a biscuit. So, for pile number 3, you got the 10 of coins in the reverse. The challenge is the 7 of coins in the reverse. And advice is the Queen of Wands. Okay, so I already know how I want to take this. So the 10 of coins in the reverse, upright, the 10 of coins is like financial success and everything is going well, wealth and abundance and all this kind of thing. But in the upright, you're a little bit more resistant to this idea. So what that kind of looks like is, you may have achieved having like a really nice car or something, but then when you look at like the amount of work that you have to put in to be able to pay that car payment, or kind of that idea in your house even, or just whatever it is, you start to look at these bills pile up, and you start to see what's necessary to maintain that quote unquote wealth. And it's a little exhausting, and you start to think, do I really need all that? So it can be like a little bit of a pushing wealth away, a rejection of it, in favor for a little bit more meager or efficient means. So this is kind of the situation that you're in now, where you're feeling like, okay, well, do I need all this stuff? Or can I kind of get by with less? Can I, have a more efficient and simpler life that's easier to maintain? So that's a really, that's a great place to be. It's a very subtle message, one that you don't see too much in the cards. In fact, I can't think of another card that has that meaning. Some of the cards have the same meanings, but that one's fairly unique and a little subtle. So, this is one that doesn't get learned very often, but if you can learn this one, it's a really big help for you. And I think one of the reasons for that is in this Western civilization, and particularly in any kind of an economy that's based on capitalism, the system functions best when people are seeking after greater and greater wealth. So it's tough when the entire world around you is pushing you toward greater and greater acquisition of goods and things like that. But it can be a little bit easier on you if you learn to cope with less. And it makes, there's a lot less that you have to do to maintain all that. So what's crossing you or challenging you here is this 7 of coins in the reverse. And this is like, you've put in a lot of work and you're expecting some kind of payoff, but it's a little delayed, or it's not coming across exactly like you expected. It could be that you're not really getting paid quite as much as you thought you would, or you're just figuring out that expenses and taxes and all these other things take a bigger chunk out than you realized. And so it may be a little daunting to get to the point where you're expecting to receive this payout or this reward. You think it's all going to be good from now on, but then it's just not. It's not quite what you wanted it to be. And so that could be driving this 10 of coins in the reverse energy, where it's like, okay, well, let me pull back the accelerator a little bit and figure out ways to cut my bottom line instead of just adding to more and more pay or something like that. So that's it makes sense for that to be kind of challenging you and to be getting you into this mindset. So I'm actually pretty surprised that those two cards go so well together. But your advice for the current situation there is the Queen of Wands. So the way I would put this is that instead of just simply focusing on massing wealth or trying to get as much money or success as you possibly can, don't focus on that so much, because I think you've already figured out that's a little bit fruitless. That's going to leave you a little unsatisfied or feeling a little empty there. So instead, focus on doing something that's dear to your heart, something that's look back into when you've been a child and everything, and you really wanted to get something done in the world, or you wanted to accomplish something, not just for yourself, but for the world itself. You know what I mean? For every person out there, there's everybody had these dreams of what they think would be great if that happened. So if you can learn to kind of focus on those projects a little bit more, if you can shift your focus to doing things that matter instead of just things that pay the bills, you will experience a lot more satisfaction. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all. That's another stage in life, but it is not a stage in life that you'll regret going down. It's a stage in life that's very rewarding, and it teaches you something about the nature of life and all that. But it's not we'll say it's not the end goal. You're not near the end goal yet. There's a lot of lessons for you to learn, so you don't want to just try to skip ahead to the end and find out what the ultimate purpose of everything is. Right now, a good thing for you to do is to find out how to cultivate or to impress your will upon the world in a way that has like a lasting legacy, or to nurture some project, to nurture something that's going to take off with like a life of its own. The Queen of Wands here, she looks very much like a gardener. So she's growing these plants, and they have a life of their own, and it's not that she is like, she's not doing it. She's not doing the growing. The plants are doing the growing themselves, but she's fostering the creation of this environment for these plants to grow. Well, they will continue to propagate, and the cycle of life kind of continues, right? So this is what you're being asked to move forward. Instead of thinking inwardly about achieving wealth and all that, try to focus more on like how can you get a little bit more involved with seeing your will done in the world around you, if you get what I'm saying. And that is to, a lot of times it takes money to get things done. So it may be that you had focused on money for that reason to begin with, and that's understandable, but you've got to kind of recognize that there are ways to kind of cut through the middleman and to do what needs to be done without having to achieve that money, or having so much money, but also pulling the reins back on your personal situation, and learning to live a more meager or meek existence is going to help you as well to accomplish the things that you want. So as long as you have your focus there, I think you'll find yourself a lot more happy and satisfied. But that's about it for card number 3. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed, please leave a comment or like the videos, and of course subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And we will see you next time, and thank you very much. Have a good one.